In the 27th century, humanity had reached the pinnacle of its technological expansion. In a universe brimming with possibilities, the boundaries between science and fantasy began to blur. The planet Nova Ether, terraformed into a true floating paradise, symbolized a utopia built on the fusion of advanced technology and human ambition. But behind the glittering facade of progress, unsettling secrets were about to change the fate not just of humanity, but of the entire space-time continuum. Among the scientists of Nova Ether, Dr. Elena Voss stood out as one of the brightest minds of her generation. A pioneer in time manipulation research, she was a controversial figure, admired for her achievements but feared for her bold ideas. In secret, Elena had spearheaded the development of the temporal singularity propulsor, a device that promised to bend the laws of the universe to humanity's will. However, her experiment triggered an invisible rupture in spacetime, something no calculation could have predicted, something that now caught the attention of forces far beyond human comprehension. News of the project leaked, reaching ears that should never have heard it. At the center of the chaos was Jared Kane, a veteran pilot and former special agent who had withdrawn from the front lines after a catastrophic mission. Jared lived in seclusion, trying to escape the ghosts of his past, but was dragged back into action when his sister, Lila, mysteriously disappeared while investigating alien ruins tied to the propulsor's technology. Her name was found in a hacked high-security database, alongside a coded message. The paradox is coming. As Jared tracked Lila's footsteps, temporal phenomena began intensifying in Nova Ether. Echoes of voices, objects vanishing and reappearing in different places, and glimpses of strange figures left citizens panicking. But nothing was as alarming as the arrival of a fleet of black ships emerging from hyperspace like living shadows. They bore no flags or communication signals, only a single transmission: time is broken, fix it or perish. Behind these ships were the Flow Watchers, an enigmatic force of cybernetic androids led by the mysterious Kale, whose presence exuded authority, resignation, and determination. They claimed to be guardians of time, but their brutal actions quickly revealed their lack of mercy. Their mission was clear: destroy the temporal singularity propulsor and anything or anyone that could threaten the balance of spacetime. At the same time, Nova Ether's scientists discovered an alien capsule in orbit, covered in pulsating inscriptions that defied any known logic. Inside, it was a single message: prepare for the final paradox. The discovery became the center of a mystery that drew Elena and Jared into an inevitable confrontation with forces beyond their understanding. While Elena sought to decipher the capsule, Jared, driven by the promise of finding answers about Lila, formed an unlikely alliance with a rogue artificial intelligence named Iris, who seemed to know more about the Flow Watchers than she let on. With the galaxy's fate at stake, Jared and Elena were forced to work together, confronting ethical dilemmas, buried secrets, and an enemy that was not just relentless but inevitable. What began as a conflict over technology soon revealed itself to be something far greater: a battle for free will in a universe where even time seemed to conspire against them. The first days following the appearance of the alien capsule were chaotic on Nova Ether. Scientists, politicians, and military leaders vied for control of the discovery, while the population began questioning whether the planet was still the safe haven it claimed to be. The capsule, encased in pulsating energy and covered with inscriptions in an unknown language, seemed to hum as if alive. Dr. Elena Voss was called upon to lead its analysis, but her involvement drew suspicious glances due to her connection with the temporal singularity propulsor. Meanwhile, Jared Kane, still reluctant to get involved, followed clues about Lila's disappearance. He uncovered fragmented records indicating that she had been part of a secret expedition deep within Nova Ether, investigating alien ruins that bore patterns similar to those on the capsule. Her last transmission was haunting: "They're watching us. There's no turning back now." Those words echoed in Jared's mind, rekindling his determination to find her, even if it meant facing powerful enemies. In the underground laboratory where the capsule was being studied, Elena made the first breakthroughs in decoding the inscriptions. The capsule appeared to be more than just an artifact; it was a kind of warning. By analyzing its energy frequencies, She discovered that the capsule was emitting signals synchronized with the temporal anomalies on Nova Ether. Each time the capsule pulsed, more gravitational ruptures appeared on the planet's surface. "We're not just dealing with advanced technology," she told her team. "We're dealing with something that understands time in a way we can't even begin to grasp." Jared and Elena met for the first time when he infiltrated the lab searching for answers. Initially hostile, Elena quickly realized he wasn't an enemy but a desperate man. "If you're here to steal secrets, you're wasting your time. If you're here for answers, you'll have to get in line," she quipped, her sarcasm barely masking her exhaustion. Jared responded by showing Lila's message, which immediately piqued Elena's interest. "Those words, they echo the capsule's pattern. I think your sister knew far more than we do." The initial distrust between them began to dissolve as the temporal ruptures intensified, throwing Nova Ether into chaos. Small black holes began appearing at random, swallowing parts of the floating cities and threatening to destabilize the planet. The Flow Watchers made their first physical appearance during this time, emerging from temporal portals in their colossal ships. Kale, the Flow Watchers' leader, appeared in a holographic transmission broadcast across the planet. "The singularity has been activated. You've broken the cycle. Now face the consequences." With Nova Ether on the brink of collapse, Jared and Elena realized their individual paths were interconnected. Jared offered his skills as a pilot and fighter, while Elena provided the scientific expertise needed to understand the capsule and the propulsor. At this critical moment, Iris, the rogue artificial intelligence that had been monitoring Jared's movements, made contact. "You don't have time to trust anyone." "Not even me," Iris said with a faintly ironic tone. "But if you want to survive, you'll need to follow my instructions." The improvised alliance between Jared, Elena, and Iris marked the beginning of a resistance. They not only had to uncover the truth behind the propulsor and the capsule, but also decide how far they were willing to risk their own lives and humanity's future to confront the Flow Watchers and the looming paradox. The alliance between Jared, Elena, and Iris began with palpable tensions. Jared, accustomed to working alone, distrusted an artificial intelligence that seemed to know too much. Elena, on the other hand, saw Iris as a valuable source of information, even as she questioned its motives. Iris, with her sarcastic personality and impeccable logic, appeared to enjoy watching the friction between them. "You two are fascinating," she remarked during a moment of calm. "It's like watching a star collide with a black hole. Which one will win?" While distrust lingered, the Flow Watchers intensified their operations. Small squadrons of androids and ships patrolled Nova Ether's skies, tracking anomalies and eliminating any human resistance. Kale's leadership, firm and calculating, was evident in every move the Watchers made. He wasn't merely hunting the temporal singularity propulsor. He seemed determined to destroy all traces of advanced human technology, as if humanity's very existence were a mistake. Amid the chaos, Iris identified an underground facility where Lila's data might be stored. The location, known as the Spectral Fortress, was a decommissioned military base repurposed for secret research. Jared insisted on leading the mission, determined to find any clue about his sister. Elena agreed but made it clear her priority was retrieving information to help them understand the capsule and the final paradox. The infiltration of the Spectral Fortress was a mix of strategy and improvisation. Jared used his combat skills to neutralize the robotic guards still defending the site, while Elena hacked into the internal systems with Iris's assistance. During their exploration, they uncovered disturbing records. Lila had discovered that the temporal singularity propulsor wasn't purely a human creation. It was based on alien technology recovered from ancient ruins scattered across the galaxy. Technology the Flow Watchers deemed forbidden. The revelations began to connect the dots. The propulsor, the alien capsule, and the temporal anomalies were intertwined in a far larger plot than any of them had imagined. "We didn't create the problem," Elena said as she examined the records. "We just accelerated something that was already in motion." For Jared, the discovery brought both relief and fear. Lila had been alive when she left these messages, but her current whereabouts remained unknown. As they processed the information, an alarm blared through the facility. The base had been located by the Flow Watchers, and an assault team led by Kale was closing in. With little time to react, Jared and Elena activated the fortress's defense systems to delay the enemy's advance. The ensuing battle was intense. Jared demonstrated his prowess as a fighter, engaging androids in hand-to-hand combat, while Elena improvised solutions to disable drones and automated traps. At the peak of the confrontation, Kale entered the fortress. His presence was overwhelming, his gleaming armor reflecting the flickering lights of the facility. He confronted Jared and Elena directly, declaring, "You don't understand what you're protecting. Time is a weapon, and you've just pointed it at your own heads." The fight between Jared and Kale was brutal, an evenly matched exchange of blows until Jared was disarmed and cornered. In an unexpected act of courage, Elena triggered a controlled explosion that destroyed part of the base, creating a diversion that allowed them to escape. Kale, injured, hesitated to pursue them, watching as they fled to an evacuation ship remotely prepared by Iris. As the fortress crumbled before him, he murmured, "They have no idea what they're unleashing." During the escape, Jared thanked Elena for saving his life, to which she replied with a wry smile. "Don't get used to it," she quipped. Despite the temporary relief, the weight of their discoveries and the closeness of danger heightened the urgency of their mission. The capsule, the propulsor, and the paradox were all connected, but the full truth remained just out of reach. After escaping the spectral fortress, Jared, Elena, and Iris sought refuge in one of the most unexpected locations: Epsilon Prime Station, an intergalactic trade hub renowned for its diversity and political neutrality. The station was a whirlwind of cultures, with alien species and human factions coexisting in a fragile balance. For Jared, the place brought back memories of past missions, while Elena saw it as an opportunity to gather crucial resources and information. The presence of the Flow Watchers on Nova Ether had sparked rumors across the galaxy. Stories of an impending war and forbidden technology echoed through the station's halls. In this charged environment, the group encountered Alara VYX, a charismatic and seasoned smuggler. Known for her ability to navigate dangerous territories and her tendency to follow only her own interests, Alara approached Jared and Elena with a sly smile. "You look desperate," she remarked, "and I like desperate people. They pay better." Elena presented Alara with the fragmented data they had recovered from the spectral fortress, including a partial map that appeared to indicate their next destination: the rupture fields, a region of space ravaged by temporal anomalies. Alara, initially hesitant, recognized the fields as a place of legend and danger. "If you want to die quickly, go alone. But if you want to survive, you'll need someone who knows the routes. Lucky for you, I'm bored." As they negotiated terms with Alara, Jared and Elena discovered that their presence on the station hadn't gone unnoticed. The Flow Watchers had sent infiltrators to monitor the activities of its inhabitants. Iris, ever vigilant, alerted the group to encrypted transmissions indicating an imminent attack. "You have a special talent for attracting trouble," Iris said. "I admire it, but I suggest you run." The confrontation on Epsilon Prime Station was chaotic. Jared led the defense, engaging the infiltrator androids with swift and precise combat, while Elena and Alara worked to hack into the station systems and create a diversion. During the skirmish, Jared faced an android that seemed different from the others, more human, almost hesitant in its movements. He realized it wasn't just a machine, it was something like Kale, a cybernetic hybrid. After neutralizing the infiltrators, the group escaped aboard Alara's ship, which turned out to be far more than a simple transport. The Star Viper was a sleek, agile vessel equipped with smuggling technologies that rivaled military systems. During their escape, Jared asked why Alara had decided to help them. She responded with her typical blend of humor and mystery, "Because you're going to cause a lot of trouble, and I love watching powerful forces squirm." As they journeyed to the rupture fields, the group began to bond in unexpected ways. Jared and Alara exchanged stories of dangerous missions, while Elena worked tirelessly to decipher more data from the capsule. It was during this time that Rixer entered the picture. A refugee alien from the rupture fields, Rixer's civilization had been destroyed by the same type of temporal instability threatening Nova Ether. Rixer explained that the fields were more than an accident. They were the result of ancient experiments conducted by a now-extinct civilization, experiments that had awakened something far greater. With Rixer aboard, the group gained a new perspective on the Archivist. According to him, the Archivist wasn't merely an entity that controlled time. It was the product of countless failed attempts to dominate it. It's not a guardian, Rixer said. It's a consequence. A force that exists because no one knew when to stop playing with what they didn't understand. Connections began to form. The temporal singularity propulsor, the alien capsule, the rupture fields, and the Archivist were all pieces of a much larger puzzle. The group realized they weren't just fighting to save Nova Ether. They were battling to prevent the entire galaxy from being consumed by the final paradox. The rupture fields were not just dangerous, they were indescribable in linear terms. Fragments of lost realities floated in space, forming unstable islands of matter and energy. The Star Viper seemed to struggle as it pushed forward, its engines emitting unsettling sounds while time around them stretched and folded unpredictably. If I'd known you were taking me straight to hell, I would have asked for a better paycheck, Ilera joked, trying to lighten the tension. Inside the ship, the effects of the distortions began to take hold. Jared saw flashes of a past he wished to forget. His failed last mission, the team he couldn't save, and the moment he chose to isolate himself from the rest of the world. Elena, in turn, was confronted with a vision of herself holding the shattered temporal singularity propulsor while people around her cried out for answers. Even Rixer seemed shaken, murmuring in his native language as he stared at visions of his extinct civilization. The temporal distortions didn't just affect space. They reached into the minds and emotions of those who dared enter. You're literally breaking, Iris observed, her tone more serious than usual. If we don't get out of here soon, there won't be much of you left to fight the Archivist. Despite the warning, Rixer insisted they were on the right path. He explained that the core of the fields was protected by a temporal energy barrier, the final defense constructed by the extinct civilization responsible for the chaos in the region. To cross it, they needed to find an artifact known as the Temporal Key, a device he claimed was hidden in the heart of one of the floating islands. The search for the key led the group to land on one of the temporal islands, where the environment seemed to shift constantly. One moment, they were in a lush forest. The next, they were surrounded by barren deserts or frozen seas. This place doesn't follow the rules, Elena said, adjusting her scanner. It creates what we need to face, or what we fear most. The trials they encountered along the way tested not only their physical abilities but also their values and convictions. Jared faced a replica of his former team, accusing him of abandoning them. Elena saw a future version of herself, alone in an empty lab, repeating the mistakes she swore never to make again. Even Ilera, always confident, hesitated when she saw a glimpse of her lost crew, frozen in time. Rixer, however, seemed more resolute than ever, as if the visions only strengthened his determination to prevent others from experiencing the same destruction his people had endured. At the heart of the island, the group finally found the Temporal Key. It was an alien device made of a translucent material that pulsed in harmony with the anomalies around it. Elena began analyzing the artifact but was interrupted by a familiar presence. Kale. He had followed the group into the rupture fields, though his approach was different this time. You have no idea what you're about to unleash, he said, his voice firm but without hostility. Kale revealed that, throughout his missions for the Archivist, he had begun to notice flaws in the logic guiding him. The Archivist doesn't want to save time, he explained. It wants to control it. All of this, the fields, the anomalies, the paradox, are just means to an end. A universe where only it decides what exists. Despite his words, the group remained wary. Why should we trust you now? Jared asked, keeping his weapon ready. Because the Archivist already knows you're here, Kale replied. And if we don't work together, none of us will make it out alive. The tension between Kale and the group was abruptly interrupted as a new wave of anomalies struck the island, forcing everyone to run back to the ship. With the Temporal Key in hand and a temporary alliance forged with Kale, they set course for the core of the fields, where the answers and the final confrontation awaited. Crossing the core of the rupture fields was like stepping into a living nightmare. As the Star Viper advanced, temporal anomalies grew even more intense, distorting the crew's perceptions. Fragments of parallel realities collided before their eyes, alternate versions of the galaxy, moments that had never happened, and familiar faces that shouldn't exist. For Jared, Elena, Ilera, Rixer, and even Kale, the core tested their physical and emotional limits. At the center of the singularity, they encountered the Eternity's vortex, a colossal, radiant structure made of pulsating energy and fragments of alien matter. The Archivist was there, not as a singular physical form but as a presence permeating the very space around them. Its voice echoed from all directions, deep and omniscient. You have defied the flow. Existence is a perfect chain of events, and I am its guardian. You are errors that must be corrected. The Archivist began manipulating their surroundings, creating scenarios that tested their sanity. Jared was thrown into a reality where his sister, Lila, was alive but trapped in an eternal loop of suffering. Elena saw herself in a future where humanity had been completely subjugated, her inventions twisted into tools of oppression. Even Kale was confronted by fragments of his past, reliving the moment he was transformed into a living weapon. As the Archivist sought to destabilize them, Elena analyzed their environment and realized the temporal key could be used to breach the vortex's structure. If we destroy the core, we can shut down the Archivist, she explained. But Kale warned that destroying the vortex entirely could have unpredictable consequences, including the collapse of multiple realities. If you do this, you won't just defeat the Archivist, you might destroy everything. The dilemma divided the group. Jared, driven by his desire to save his sister and end the Archivist's reign, leaned toward risking total destruction. Elena, more rational, argued they should attempt to reprogram the Archivist, using its logic to transform it into a protector rather than a tyrant. Kale, visibly torn, saw a chance for redemption through the group but knew his former master still had a strategic advantage. The confrontation reached its peak when the Archivist assumed a more defined form, a monumental figure of light and shadow, embodying the decisions and mistakes of its adversaries. It attacked by wielding fragments of time as weapons, creating alternate realities in real time to confuse and disorient the group. In one of these anomalies, the Star Viper was destroyed, forcing the group to fight directly on the unstable terrain of the vortex. Jared, armed with the temporal key, led the charge against the Archivist's core while Elena attempted to access the entity's systems to reprogram it. Ilera and Rixer battled the Archivist's minions, distorted echoes of shattered realities. At a critical moment, Kale, injured and near defeat, chose to sacrifice himself. Using his residual connection to the Archivist, he created an opening in the core. With the opportunity at hand, Jared faced a final decision. He could use the temporal key to destroy the Archivist entirely, risking the annihilation of all connected timelines, or allow Elena to complete her reprogramming attempt, a process that could fail. He looked to Elena, who urged him to trust her. Destruction is easy, Jared. Rebuilding, that takes courage. Jared handed the key to Elena, who quickly implemented the necessary commands. The Archivist resisted, but with Kale's last remaining strength, he held the entity long enough for the reprogramming to succeed. The core of the vortex gradually diminished as the Archivist transformed into something new, a sentience that still controlled the flow of time but was now guided by principles of preservation and balance rather than domination. When the vortex finally stabilized, the group emerged exhausted but victorious. The galaxy had been saved, but at an immense cost. Kale was gone, and the fragmented realities created by the Archivist remained as haunting reminders of the dangers of tampering with time. For Jared, Elena, Ilera, and Rixer, the journey was far from over. Though they had won this battle, the scars of their ordeal, and the echoes of the Archivist's influence, would shape their futures in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The return to Nova Ether was bittersweet. The battle against the Archivist was over, but the scars of the confrontation were everywhere. The temporal anomalies had vanished, yet they left permanent imprints on the planet and its people. Parts of Nova Ether still floated in intermediary states, echoes of realities that had never fully existed. For Jared, Elena, Ilera, and Rixer, The weight of their mission followed them in silence. Elena led the effort to permanently deactivate the temporal singularity propulsor. In a speech before Nova Ether's leaders, she declared, "We toyed with forces we didn't understand, and now we've paid the price. But we don't have to repeat these mistakes." Her decision divided opinions, but to her, it was a necessary step to ensure the final paradox would never threaten them again. Jared, after delivering Lila's final messages to the colony's leadership, finally found a moment to reflect. The voice of Iris, who had gone offline after the confrontation in the vortex, still echoed in his mind. Chaos and free will are what make time human. He knew the war against the Archivist had been won, but he also understood the universe was still full of dangers. This will never end, he thought, looking up at the skies, where fragments of the rupture fields still shimmered like scars in the fabric of space. Alara, true to her nature, departed quickly aboard her rebuilt Star Viper, wearing her enigmatic smile. "Saving the universe with you all was fun," she said, winking at Jared before vanishing into hyperspace. Rixer chose to stay on Nova Ether, offering his knowledge to help prevent future temporal disasters. "You humans have a unique talent for surviving the impossible," he remarked, watching the reconstruction efforts. "Maybe that's what the universe needs." But the end was not so simple. Elena discovered that the reprogrammed Archivist had left a final message within its systems. "Time is resilient, but it is not unbreakable. Others will come. Be prepared." To her, those words were both a warning and a mission. "We can't just wait," she thought. "We have to be ready." As the galaxy began to adjust to its new balance, fragments of the vortex lingered as unresolved mysteries. In a final scene, an unknown figure stood in an abandoned laboratory, gazing at the flow catalyst, the alien artifact that had given rise to the propulsor. With an ambiguous smile, the figure murmured, "Time always finds a way." As the universe started to rebuild itself, a sense of unease lingered for those who understood the magnitude of the events. Though the Archivist had been neutralized, time still held unfathomable mysteries, waiting for those bold enough to unravel them.